Porter Robinson is an electronic artist who has garnered quite a decent following on the social medias and whatnot. He has been doing pretty well for himself since about 2014 with an album that I must say I will listen to. I always try and listen to, you know, the artist's back catalogue before I do reviews, or at least a couple of their albums if I don't know much about them. But I'm not really getting that done lately. I've been pretty shit with that. In my defense, I'm pretty busy. I mean, it's my final year of university, guys. Cut me some slack, so I can't really give you any insight onto the music prior to Nurture because I ain't heard it. But what I can tell you is my journey with this album. And that's what you're here for anyway. You didn't click this review to find out more information of his previous stuff. You're here for Nurture. And my journey with this album was I listened to it first, didn't really click with the vocals, and more listens later, I clicked with the vocals. There's this weird alien fusion in the vocals here where you can hear like the male, female vocals kind of like being squashed together, and it makes this really strange effect on the voice. Not that it's never been done before, but I do think there's quite a charming approach to how Porter Robinson does it. It makes the vocals sound like they're really easy to attach to, and they are quite wholesome in a bizarre way, considering how unearthly they sound. Like, it doesn't really sound like anything you would ever really come across. It sounds more like, you know, Cara Delevingne's voice in Suicide Squad, if anything like that, but in a good way, because we don't talk about that film or her performance, because both things were shit. It's a very creative way to approach music. I think you could easily just, you know, give a standard vocal performance over these kinds of instrumentals, but it actually creates such a cool effect and gives these songs life in ways that I don't think you'd be able to achieve if you just use standard vocals or whatever, or no vocals at all. And while it takes time to get used to, you suddenly find yourself falling in love with tracks like Look at the Sky, which is just an insanely life-affirming track. There's gotta be a point where this song makes it onto a coming-of-age film. Like, I couldn't see it never happening. It has to happen. This has to be on some kind of coming of age film, like the final scene or something like that. Someone's going to pick this up at some point. The chorus is fantastic. It honestly reminds me of like the passion that we got from DJ Sabrina's album in a different way. Like, DJ Sabrina just used these vocal samples that always sounded so larger than life, and everything was just, you know, the last moments of your life, and you just have to get out whatever you want to say in your dying breath, like that kind of passion. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like this track, particularly on the chorus, hits that level. Definitely reminiscent of like some huge late 2000s, early 2010s synth pop stadium anthem. Just really has everything going for it. Really love this track. And the production impresses me continually from there. I mean, Get Your Wish has the charming vocals once again, but of course production matching it just has this really animated and lively feel to it that I just absolutely adore. There's never a point where I feel like Porter Robinson is holding back. He's just throwing everything at every song, and it's never too much. It's always just the right amount. You know what I mean? It's like Goldilocks finding the right porridge and the right bed. It's never, you know, the hard bed or the too soft bed. You know, it never gets too soft, it never gets too mushy, it never gets too, ooh, this is a bit, ooh. It's just always in the right place, and I don't know how Porter does it. And I do think it could get a bit mushy-gushy in some places, but for me it just never really does, and that's what I really like about this album. There's some really standout moments with the piano on this album too, with tracks like Wild Tempos, where the final minute with like the broken and jaded vocals in this section here. Obviously, again, there's lots of effects being used on the vocals in many parts of this album, but in a way that doesn't annoy me. And I must have said about 100 times on this channel that some vocals in this style get on my nerves. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago since that Danny L. Hall album that I was saying the same thing for. So to find an album that does this and achieves it in such a great way because of the instrumentals that it's backed by too, like I say, the piano, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment at the end of this track. Everything just feels right, you know? It never once feels like the humanity's being lost in translation either. It really is such a great way to modulate vocals. Like, this is how you do it. This needs to be the standard. You know, you need that emotion coming through while also using a creative effect to, you know, put out those vocals. Everyone should be looking at Porter, basically, is what I'm saying. There are a few tracks that go full on pop though, like holy shit, Musician and Something Comforting. These two tracks take tropes from like EDM, honestly. Like, this is the most accessible the album gets, and Musician is a fucking catchy bop. This track is so sugary, and again, it never goes too far to giving it brain freeze or anything like that. It's just the right amount. It's just the right amount. It's like a good brownie. It's like a good brownie. Something Comforting as well. Like I say, just great tracks here. Instrumentals are stellar. Just once again, so impressed with this style of electronic music that he is going for here, because he's dabbling in and out of lots of different things and never really feels like he's out of his comfort zone. Love the trippy garage beat that comes through on Do Re Mi. Of course, the vocals repeat that whole Do Re Mi thing. It's a very, very classic approach to like music and stuff, so it's, you know, pretty recognizable for anyone that understands how to create music and musical, you know, the technicalities of music, basically, is what I'm saying. But the beat is great, the garage production is fantastic. This combination of glitch pop and, you know, the kind of strange little quirks that Porter Robinson throws into the music totally reminds me of an artist called Shohei Amemori, who dropped an album in 2016, by the way. And you should check it out. You should really check it out. There's a great emphasis on the vocals on Sweet Time, which is a much more delicate track. Once again, the human touch is really here, even though, you know, it does sound quite strange, of course, with those vocals. But yeah, it just really hits. I really love moments like this on the album because it just shows that Porter Robinson has a great knack for what he's doing across this entire thing. He can have, you know, the huge, just colourful production splashes that completely like hit you in the face, and then strip things back even further, and none of that gets lost, and it's still really good. The melody on the final track too is a stunner, absolutely sunshine, this one. So bright, it really feels like you've just, you know, walked out your house and the sun is right on your eyes because everything is just so fucking bright, honestly. Really, really love this final track. Just encapsulates everything that Porter has been doing up until this point, and there's just not a wasted moment on this album, really, honestly. Even Unfold, the track before this, absolutely stunning. Just really, really, really impressive in terms of production, this whole thing. Like, I'm a big fan of electronic music. I've become a huge fan of it over the past year, maybe 18 months, I guess, at this point. But just to hear an album like this really feels like a big achievement. I do feel like Porter Robinson's hit the nail on the head with what he's doing here. And you know what? It was only a few listens ago that this album wasn't clicking for me. The vocals just weren't hitting, and yet now everything's fallen into place and it's hitting the spot in such a great way, which tells me that this album still has room to grow on me even more. I think for now, I really think it's great, but who's to say in a year's time I don't love this even more than I do now. It's really blossomed in such a beautiful way. There's so much to love about this album, honestly. It's an hour long. There's so much being thrown at you in that time. It's really impressive. I think this is really, really good. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 for now, though. 8 out of 10. But you know, like I say, I think there's still room for this to keep getting better and better and better and better and better. And thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully I explained myself in the best way I could for this video. Hopefully you subscribe as well if you haven't already. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Tell me your thoughts about this album in the comments. Have a good day and goodbye.